Gospel of Matthew, chapter 7, verse 16, it is said, "By their fruits shall you know them." Those in the church can be quite quick to point out the epidemic of directionless hedonism, materialism, and all-around degeneracy that are the fruits of so-called secular culture, which is often wrongly treated as a monolith. But what about the fruits of rigid traditional Catholicism? Personally, I have witnessed plenty of neuroticism, anxiety, burdensome legalism, and a lack of empathy, genuine empathy. Sometimes traditional Catholicism can even get mixed up with xenophobia and white supremacy. Now, to be sure, not every traditionalist exhibits these unfortunate traits, and it is likely that most folks in the pews simply like the Latin Mass, but they don't necessarily check every box of the lengthy dogmatic list of their subculture. Leading church figures in this movement, such as Father Chad Ripperger, Bishop Athanasius Schneider, Archbishop Carlo Maria Vigano, and several others, boil the spiritual life down into unquestioning submission to the rigid rubric of medieval moral manuals, the recitation of prayers and performance of rituals in a dead but beautiful language, namely Latin. And for some reason, Latin has been artificially granted a kind of idolatrous status of superiority. Traditionalist Catholic influencers have also been in the habit of peddling conspiracy theories or debunked science.
There's a tremendous amount of scientific evidence that shows the Earth isn't millions and millions of years old, that it actually is somewhere between 6 and 10, maybe 12 on the outside, 6 and 10,000 years old, and that actually if you look at the science, the honest science, not what's all being driven by the middle tier of the academia, but the actual people that are doing the hard science in this area, they're just not saying, look, the Earth is just that old.
They show a great tendency to affiliate with political cults and constantly cast aspersions on the leadership of Pope Francis.
Pope Francis is destroying the vineyard of Jesus Christ, and it has to stop.
They often treat other cultures or points of view with a disdain and even demonize them. They've increasingly been romanticizing imperial rule and monarchy. Indeed, the phrase Christ is King has been tainted by this unsavory bunch, stripping it of its meaning to build a society founded on Christ's example of love and sacrifice. Instead, it seems to be more of a dog whistle for fascism, or at least fascist leanings. The traditionalists might speak of the truth, beauty, and goodness that motivates their movement, and certainly it is best to assume the sincerity of their motives. But beneath their yearning for Christendom, of this nostalgia for a Western civilization of old that has been misremembered and whitewashed, is the belief that all other paths lead to perdition. The God of the Gentiles are demons, as the saying goes. In other words, it's either traditional Catholicism or hell. And it is this supremacist, fear-mongering triumphalism that I cannot stomach. They turn God into a Latin-loving, iron-fisted ruler who refuses to commune with the rest of humanity outside the one true faith. And this rebarbative version of religion is what repels many from Catholicism. I would wager that most atheist opponents of the Church do not actually reject God per se, but the God concept propagated by the radical traditionalists. These radtrads cannot seem to appreciate beauty beyond the isolated corner that they keep to. They spend their days gatekeeping, making the faith about legalism, ritual, the fetishization of suffering, the preoccupation with sex and reproduction, and unceasing paranoia about diabolical forces. One must strain to find any hint of the Gospel of Matthew 25, where Jesus teaches that those who enter God's kingdom have proven their love for the Creator through the corporal works of mercy. The greatest commandment, after all, is not the mandatory attendance of traditional Latin Mass, nor adherence to the oppressively unbending rulebook of sexual choreography penned by hysterical celibates. It is to love God with your whole heart, mind, soul, and strength, and to love your neighbor as yourself. Perhaps my rant is too simplistic, and maybe I could afford to give the hardliners more of the benefit of the doubt. But I still cannot bring myself to eat the fruit of the traditionalist tree.